Hello everyone, in this video, I'll be translating and summarizing the latest Urdu broadcast by Moeed Pirzada to make it accessible for our English-speaking audience. Let's go through the key developments and insights in Moeed Pirzada's words. I have before me several interesting and significant developments. These are related to the Middle East, Pakistan, India, Europe and even Britain. There's an ongoing effort to launch a movement against Muslims. Essentially, immigrants are being blamed for the destruction of the homeland. And of course, globally, the media's focus is on Doha, the capital of Qatar, where it is reported more than 50 heads of Muslim countries are currently gathered. These leaders include presidents, prime ministers, kings, princes and emirs. All of them are there. A day ago, on Sunday, a ministerial meeting was held where foreign ministers from over 50 Muslim countries convened and formulated a 7-point agenda for their heads of state. I will share all the details with you shortly. There are also some very interesting developments concerning Pakistan. You see, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, or PTI, has come under the spotlight after an American publication dropped a major story. They have demanded that the Election Commission publish a report related to the February 2024 elections, which has been hidden. This is a very interesting development, and I will share more details with you on this matter as well. Similarly, regarding the relationship between India and the United States, there's a very interesting debate happening in Foreign Affairs, a powerful American publication, involving prominent Indian foreign policy experts, including former foreign secretaries. The discussion centers around how India has overestimated its own strength and significance on the global stage, considering itself a great power. I try to comment on these developments whenever I get the opportunity. But first, let's move to the Middle East and head to Doha, Qatar, which is currently the center of global attention. I'm sure, although people in Pakistan may not typically be interested in regional or international issues, many may now be keen to know what's happening. The key facts are that over 50 leaders from the Muslim world, including Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, are present in Doha. Also present is Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, whose input has been pivotal in shaping the 7-point agenda. One of the proposals calls for suspending Israel's membership in the United Nations. Let's take a look at Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS, of Saudi Arabia, who was expected to arrive in Doha. His presence had been anticipated for September 11th, but until now he has not landed in Doha. His arrival, if it happens, will be highly significant, as the world will be closely watching to see what position he takes. Other important leaders, like Mohammed bin Zayed of the UAE, are also expected to play crucial roles in this discussion. Now, as for the 7-point agenda that has emerged from the meeting of over 50 Muslim countries, I will briefly go over the points. The first point is that Israel must be held accountable for war crimes and crimes against humanity. It is not clear who will hold Israel accountable, but this demand is a central feature of the agenda. The second point is to create an Arab Islamic task force to monitor Israeli actions. This task force would recommend effective ways to stop Israel's actions, although there is no clear understanding of how this would be done. The third proposal involves pursuing the suspension of Israel's membership in the United Nations. There is some confusion about how this would work, but it requires a recommendation from the UN Security Council. Essentially, if 9 of the 15 members of the Security Council agree and no veto is cast, Israel's membership could be suspended. However, this is highly unlikely given the veto power of countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia and China. Another point is that member states should consider imposing additional punitive measures against Israel. These measures have yet to be defined clearly. The fifth point demands an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire from Israel, as well as the release of hostages and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners. Many world organizations and countries have called for this, but with little impact so far. The sixth point is related to providing unfettered humanitarian aid to civilians in Gaza. The humanitarian situation is dire, but Israel's blockade makes it nearly impossible for aid to reach those in need. The seventh point reiterates the need for a genuine and time-bound political process that achieves a just, comprehensive and lasting two-state solution in accordance with international law and UN resolutions. While these points might seem somewhat abstract, the missing element in the agenda is a direct call for countries like Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kosovo, Sudan and Turkey to sever diplomatic ties with Israel. There is no mention of freezing trade relations with Israel, denying them airspace for commercial purposes, or freezing cultural, educational and scientific exchanges. It's worth noting that such proposals have been discussed before, but no concrete action has been taken. Despite this, we remain hopeful that some resolution may come out of these discussions. However, as of now, the 7 proposals on the table lack any practical impact. I've also been reading Israeli newspapers in the last few hours, and there is considerable concern there about these regional proposals. I believe that if the Muslim countries and leaders could come together and announce that they will no longer engage diplomatically with Israel until the Israeli government, led by Netanyahu, is changed, it would have a significant impact. But unfortunately, as of now, this remains a far-off possibility. In conclusion, there are many proposals on the table, but they are not likely to yield immediate results. There is still uncertainty about how the global community, especially the Arab world, will respond. Let's wait and see what happens next. We will not engage with the Netanyahu government in any way. We will not cooperate with the government in any form. If Netanyahu's government had been somewhat effective, it would have created a solid impact for both Netanyahu and President Trump. But so far, no such proposal has been put forward. Let's see if something comes up in the next few hours. As I had told you earlier, they are internally divided. When their foreign ministers had a meeting, it is obvious that they could not reach any consensus. Egypt has its own politics. The United Arab Emirates has its own interests. Jordan has its own interests. Sudan has its own interests. Saudi Arabia has its own interests. And Pakistan's position is completely hypocritical. I mean, Mr. Ishaq has no children. There is no one so naive that they do not know that Israel is a member of the United Nations. I think none of you here would be so innocent. If anyone is that naive, they should stop watching this channel. Because after 3 years of my hard work, I don't think anyone here could be so foolish, so naive, to think that Arab countries could suspend Israel's United Nations membership. Let me tell you something else I forgot earlier. If the Security Council recommends it and no member vetoes it, the matter will go to the General Assembly, where in around 190 countries a 2/3 majority is required to suspend membership. How is such a process possible, tell me? If the General Assembly meets and 129 or 130 members decide to suspend Israel's privileges, like what happened with South Africa or Yugoslavia, then Israel can be removed from many working committees. But I believe that even with America's influence in the General Assembly, if the Arab economies, worth $6 trillion, push back, Israel's membership in some working committees can be suspended or weakened. This is one possibility worth considering, but let's see what happens in Israel. As the United States envoy, Marco Rubio, who is also the US National Security Advisor, called Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq in the last 24 to 36 hours. You must have seen the headline in Pakistan's English newspapers like the Express Tribune. It was framed as if Pakistan and the United States are having such a deep relationship, discussing threats and how Pakistan is dealing with India or Afghanistan. But honestly, the reality is quite different. These calls from Marco Rubio were very suspicious. When the US Secretary of State calls Pakistan's foreign minister before the Islamic summit, you can guess what proposals Pakistan might have been considering, as they were already receiving calls from the US Secretary of State. When America's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, reached Israel, Netanyahu was fully prepared for his drama and took him to the Western Wall in Jerusalem, a sacred place. This is, very significant in politics because it was reported that Netanyahu wore a kippah, a skull cap, and Marco Rubio did the same. Both of them then touched the wall, and there are reports that both placed prayers there. Netanyahu used this act to try to put the US Secretary of State on the defensive. After that, Netanyahu made a strong statement, standing in front of the press, with the US Secretary of State by his side. He said that the relationship between Israel and the United States is as strong as the Western Wall. In response, Marco Rubio didn't say a word. He didn't make any comment at all. This was noticed by the media across the world. It showed that there is tension within America. The tension arises from the fact that Marco Rubio was sent to Israel to extract concessions from Netanyahu, specifically on the issue of settlements in Gaza, in order to avoid a unified Arab stance. However, reports indicate that Netanyahu is not ready to show any flexibility on these matters. In fact, Netanyahu has intensified airstrikes on Gaza, and since morning, 50 to 60 people have been killed. It appears Netanyahu is very confident that the Israeli lobby has full control over US politics. Whether it's President Donald Trump or Secretary Marco Rubio, These people are all at the mercy of the Israeli lobby, and Netanyahu knows this very well. The entire power structure in the United States is under Netanyahu's control, and he is displaying this power openly. In the meantime, an interesting development took place in the United States press, notably in the Washington Post, about the Israeli intelligence agency, Mossad. It reported that the head of Mossad, David Barnea, opposed an attack plan on Hamas leadership in Doha, Qatar. According to reports, Mossad had been planning a ground attack similar to the one in Iran against Hamas leadership, but Barnea disagreed because it could ruin Israel's relations with Qatar, with whom they had worked closely in the past. Additionally, Israel's military chief, Aviv Kochavi, also opposed the plan due to the bad optics it would create. However, the Israeli government went ahead with airstrikes in Gaza, and over 50 people were killed. Now, this situation also raises questions regarding Israel's military capabilities. There are doubts about whether Israel has the necessary weapons, such as ballistic missiles or F-35 jets, capable of striking targets in Qatar, which is 1,500 kilometers away. Normally, Israel's missiles have a range of only 400 to 500 kilometers, but reports suggest Israel may have developed new air-to-ground missiles, although this is still speculative. Moreover, questions are being raised about how Israeli jets could fly through Saudi airspace without detection, as Saudi Arabia has sophisticated radar systems. There are several other interesting developments, but for now, let's move on to the topic of Pakistan's political situation. The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, or PTI, has demanded that the government publish a report from the Commonwealth Secretariat regarding the Election Commission. This is a very interesting issue, and I plan to discuss it in detail in my next vlog. There have been several revelations, including the fact that the European Union and other European agencies are reluctant to publish their reports, fearing it could harm their relations with Pakistan. There's much more to discuss regarding Islamophobic protests in London, the rise of hate based on racism, and how some of our Indian brothers misunderstand these trends. I'll cover these issues in more detail next time. That wraps up our translation of Moeed Pirzada's video. I hope this English version helped you understand his message better. Please like, share and subscribe to Awami Lens to help our community grow. Don't forget to leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of this effort.